start with an opening prayer by Chaplain General Jaman.
Thixo wabazali bethu, Thixo wokhokho bethu, Thixo wethu, Thixo wezizukulwana zethu, ngalentsasa yanamhlanje xa sigobe iminqonqo sinika imbeko kwelikhaya lakwaGulube. Siyakucela ke Thixo wehlisa umoya wakho ingcwele, wehlele ngezantsi uthabathe indawo yawo. Siyakucela ke Thixo ube nolusapho olihlwele lilifu elimnyama. Sicela ke ingceba zakho Thixo, sicela ububele bakho, sicela uthando lwakho. Yiba no-program director wethu, ube nezithethi zethu ezizawuthetha apha. Kwakhona Thixo yiba nabo bonke ababukeleyo lo msebenzi kabawo uGulube kwindawo abakuzo kude. Zonke ke izinto beThixo sicela egameni leSonyanyana nomoya oyingcwele. May all the people of God say amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, I greet you all this morning in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. My name is Bilabila Isaac Modise. I've been humbled and honored to be entrusted with the duty of being the director of the program this morning. The program for the funeral service of the late Dr. Sam Makudu Gulube, our father, grandfather, brother, uncle, our colleague, our compatriot. On behalf of all of us gathered here today, let me express on behalf of the council our deepest and sincere condolences to the bereaved family, the family of Gulube. Mdeni waka Gulube sithi duduzekani akwehlanga lungehli.
I remember there was a time he took us to Durban. There was a very nice cabin, and it was a warm summer night. We had a bonfire, and we could hear the distant ocean breeze. We could hear the distant ocean crashing waves. We could hear the trees blowing in the breeze. And my father was telling one of his famous stories. If you've ever had the honor of hearing one of these, it truly was something. Especially when he spoke of his time with Umkhonto weSizwe in the late 70s. And I remember he spoke specifically that day of his family and how he looked at the night sky and wondered if they even knew if he was alive, if they missed him. And that kind of changed my perspective and made me see my father in a totally different light, because all those days missing him, we didn't really have an emotional context as a father, what he was actually going through. You know, I think as a child, I would always think about what I was going through personally. So when he told that story of longing for his family, I understood the depth of his love and the depth of his sacrifice. Recently, before his passing, he was with my son, Ubungili, Skalo Gulube. He called him Skalo, that name he was given by his grandfather, and it truly is a testament to what my son marked in our lives. And I feel as a father, him and I developed a hugely, or let me say a greatly deeper connection once my son was born. So it was not just a new beginning of my son's life, but it was truly a new chapter in my relationship with my father. He truly was an example, and he inspired me to be a better father to my son. He inspired me to lead by example, and where words fail, his light truly, his light truly did light the way for myself and his grandson, and he'll be deeply missed. To my dad, I'd like to say, Ubunlili still wants to go to McDonald's and have a sleepover with you. So I guess it's on me now. You'll be dearly missed by us. You were truly a pillar of your family, a hero to your countrymen, and a shining light upon this world. Though we bid you farewell, you were with us forever, Spirit. As we would always say on the phone, goodbye, Dad, until we meet again. I love you.
Mostly known as Honorable Dr. Sam, someone I was lucky enough to call uncle with a distinctive laugh. You just never miss his laugh. I was 8 when I lost my father, your brother. You and Auntie Ruth stepped in as parents while my mom was working. I can never thank you enough for the tremendous support you have given me throughout the years. You have really been a pillar of strength to me and the family, always willing to go the extra mile. I've been told by many that you were a replica of my dad. When speaking to my mom, trying to figure out how my dad looked like, my mom said I should give you a look and I would know exactly how he looked like. What's funny here is that you didn't only embody my dad, you were my living dad. I've reached and surpassed a lot of milestones under your wing, from my university graduation to landing my first ever job, to ensuring I'm always safe in these Joburg streets, and to making sure I get the best medical help when giving birth to your granddaughter, the one you never got the opportunity to see. Unfortunately, COVID robbed both of you the chance to meet each other. The love you had and expressed for your wife was a love story from a romance novel. You definitely gave her the egg treatment she deserved. You respected and cared for her to your fullest capacity. I'll forever commend you for that. And to Auntie Lillian, I am so sorry for your loss. I want to remind you that we will constantly be here for you. To Mbego and Sugumani, I wanted to also remind you that you were raised by a courageous leader, a man who was never scared to make people uncomfortable, a man who loved unconditionally, a family man. During this time, I ask that you remain steadfast in your teachings. I ask that you take care of the family. These are definitely big steps to follow, but I have no doubt you'll carry them out with confidence and grace, as you spoke with them. To my uncle, you are my pillar. I bragged about you. I will continue bragging about you. It never dawned on us that we will lose you so soon after Koko's passing, the great Napala Gulube. But God's will always prevails. You were also loving, and you upheld family values to the highest of standard. Heaven was never ready for the festivities that were about to start as you and Gogo Sara enter the floodgates of heaven. Bandile is already waiting for you with your favorite glass of whiskey. Rest in peace, Papa Kulwami. Love, Lula.
So, over the last week and during my 30 plus years of life, I've heard countless stories about Dr. Gulube. He went by many names over the years. Scientist, David, Makudu, Boot Boy, Sam, but I just knew him as Dad. As much as he was a hero to many, multiply it by 10, and that's what he was as a father. I remember when he went by David, I also changed my name to Daniel or Tommy because I also wanted an English name. I always wanted to be just like him, so I'd even write my own surname as Ndala during his time in exile. Dad was always busy, whether it was med school and eventually becoming a doctor, introducing telemedicine to South Africa, working at the USA, the National Blood Service, or serving with the National Defense. So it meant the moments we shared with him always had to be valued, and him being the man he is, they truly were. He supported Mbeka and myself during our early days when we played basketball matches at the YMCA in the States, bringing pizza to the team whenever we won or lost, because he was just that cool dad. He supported Mbeka during his early DJ days, helping to transform our house into Club 497, and carrying on the tradition of hosting and putting on a good time for friends and family, leaving no doubt where our passion for music comes from. There are countless songs that remind me of him, but none more so than Way Back Home by the Crusaders, especially the live edition. Whenever I miss him, I play that song, close my eyes, and I can feel his presence. It's a presence that was felt in every room he entered, a presence that will be dearly missed. His smile didn't just light up the room, it lit up your soul. He had an uncanny ability to connect with people and inspire them to be better. But you also knew that smile came with mischief. I won't get into those stories, as I'm sure we all have them, but hold on to those memories and remember his smile. I hope it brings you the same comfort it's brought me over these last few days. And these last few days. Wow, Dad, I don't know how you did it. You made leading seem so effortless, but let me tell you, it's not. The humility and patience needed, he had in abundance, and guided by an unwavering spirit of hope and self-belief. It's that hope that took him from being a student to a fighter, wanting more for the country he called home. It's the same hope that allowed him to realize that dream of freedom and go back to complete his studies and return home to share his knowledge and help build our country. And that spirit of hope must never die. When you think of my dad, ask yourself what you can do to improve not just your situation, but the reality of others. And to my family, we've lost a giant. No one person can fill the gap left behind, but together we will persevere and pull through. I'll do my best to continue to live up to my name and rise to the occasion, and I hope you all do the same. In closing, I'd like to thank everyone that has helped us make today a reality. I can't name everyone as the list is long, but thank you to the National Defense Force, friends of the family over all the years and chapters of my dad's life, the Moore family, my dad's friends and business partners, as well as my family and friends. Your presence and support was felt by us all, both physically and in spirit. We thank you for everything. And to my dad, I'm glad you can finally rest in peace. If anyone deserves it, it's you. I love you and thank you for everything you've done for Mbeka, myself, and the family over the years. You'll never be forgotten.
Thank you very much to the children. You show so much strength. Just show that you had a giant as a father. We really appreciate and honor Dr. Gulube for what he has done in your life. At this point in time, ladies and gentlemen, I'll call upon Mr. Hilton Clay to speak on behalf of all the public, as well as a friend to Dr. Gulube.
Mbeko and Suku, Lillian and Msimsha, Maruth, the rest of the family, Honorable Deputy Minister of Defense, American Veterans, Honorable Ngibambe Ngesandla, Honorable Mayor, Mr. Zuma, Program Director, Clergy, the Chaplain General, these chaplains, Colonels. The Chaplain General was the spiritual leader of Dr. Gulube when he was the Secretary for Defense. And you know, I think in a position so high, you need a spiritual leader just to keep you safe and to keep you spiritual. And the chaplain general was there, I know, because I was also there. It is with a heavy heart that I stand here today and bid farewell to what I used to call paps. That means father or dad in our language. Doc, the rest of the board members called him Uncle or Malume, the rest of the office staff called him Doc. Is a business partner of the NYAWO group. He was a shareholder and he was also the head of clinical health in the NYAWO group. And he was one of those who was very passionate about science. He was a scientist indeed, and he was a business partner and father to us as the board members of the NYAWO group here in South Africa. You know, your business partner always becomes a family member that you spend much time with on a daily basis. And if you look at the video clips that we've sent to the family, you would also always see Doc sitting on my left, me chairing, and Doc being the deputy chair in all the meetings that we've attended. Doc was a man that gave particular attention to detail when it comes to meetings. He would rattle the staff, Cheslin and the CEO, when it comes to minutes of the meeting, and ask them to ensure that those minutes are correct and always on time. Let me give you a little bit of a background about his life after being secretary of this country. A few years before I left defense, I said to Doc, one day, we will work together in our own business. And you know, he had that small little funny laugh. That beautiful laugh that only he had. And yet, immediately after he left defense, he became a board member and took over certain positions. And the first one that he took over was the head of health in the NYAWO group. And he was passionate about what was going on in our country, in particular, this monster that we are fighting today called COVID-19. He immediately started, when he joined the group, in leading the clinical team of the NYAWO group between China and South Africa by bringing one of the vaccines manufactured in China and currently in over 70 countries, and also in the arms being jabbed by over 500 million people in the world. He was the leading factor of the vaccine that should come to South Africa so that we can fight this war against this monster. And Doc was the one that ensured that our regulatory body today in South Africa a body that we can be proud of, approves SAPRA, approves the Sinovac vaccine in South Africa. And today we can successfully say Doc achieved his goal by bringing Sinovac into South Africa. Doc also led our clinical research team that instituted an internationally renowned CRO here in South Africa called the NYAWO Group Clinical Health Research and Development Center. Currently, the group is busy with a clinical study on vaccinating children between the ages of 6 months and 17 years old. We've seen that this monster, through the different variants that is developing in the world, are also now in his Delta strain attacking our children. And Doc made sure that we have out of 20 countries being chosen as one of the top 5 countries to do the clinical research of this vaccine to protect children, the future of our country. He successfully did that, and we're starting very soon to implement and jab 2,000 children into the clinical program. Doc also was on the forefront of a leading team to establish a vaccine manufacturing company in South Africa and a vaccine manufacturing plant in Mozambique. Doc successfully led with me those sessions and those meetings of negotiation between China, Sinovac, and GJI. Doc was well respected by the Chinese government and the people of China, in particular Sinovac and GJI International. Today, Mr. Ren is here representing GJI and the people of China. Through the Zoom session, our people of China are also zooming in to this funeral. Doc also loved animals. His passion for cattle was amazing. And I can remember the day with excitement when Doc bought the first 15 cows. And he said, let's go to the farm in Ventersdorp and let's make sure that they arrived safely. And of course, en route to our route to Ventersdorp, to the farm, we played this lovely jazz music and we talked about a lot of things, and we kept on talking since then about a lot of things in the agricultural space in our country. Today, those 15 cows had 8 little ones, of which he was so proud of. And him and his good friend, Eric Chikovic, whom share the relationship in the farming industry with us, are hosting his cows and making sure that those beautiful cows are taken care of. He also grew out the agricultural portfolio of the NYAWO Group, where he successfully established a relationship with us on the exporting of cattle between China and South Africa, but also other countries in the Middle East. He successfully worked with us together with the Wagyu beef industry to ensure that we export Wagyu beef to other countries.
He successfully worked with us on the Protea Reserve Company to ensure that ourselves and Cavalier do everything in our powers to export the best quality beef to other countries and to our country. He was part of our board in the agricultural space where we obtained an abattoir in Ceres, Cape Town, and is running successfully today. He's part of the team that are now acquiring one of the biggest dairy farms in South Africa so that the people can have beef, meat, the people can drink milk, and the people can be proud of the quality of that. Doc, in his last words to me, when we were in a board meeting virtually with China, Advocate Ralingo stopped the Zoom session and said, Doc, are you okay? What's wrong? Because Doc didn't look fine. He said, no, I'm fine, it's just a little flu. And that is where it all started. One night, early morning, around the early hours, he called me and said, Lillian is not doing well. We need to get her to the hospital. He successfully administered that process for Lillian to be safe and in hospital. After that, we realized that he himself is not doing well at home. And we took General Webby, as part of our board members, arranged for the military veterans to assist to get him to the one military hospital. And there, every day we spoke. And one of his words was, get me some ivermectin. I said, Doc, you're in hospital, we can't interfere in that. Don't worry, I'll deal with them, get me some ivermectin. And I'm not going to say if we got it or not. But we always used to listen to his instructions. And then Doc sent me a message. I'm not doing well. Find out how Lillian is doing. And my team successfully conveyed a message to him on how Lillian was doing, and she conveyed a message to him as well. And then Doc became quiet. His last message to me was, thanks Hilton for supporting Lillian and me. Let's keep hope alive. And that was Doc. He was hopeful. He was always hopeful. He was always positive. And with his spirit of humility and kindness to everybody, he always was successful in all the dealings that we did. His smile in board meetings when we were very serious brought comfort to all of us, especially when we're busy with huge programs and end dates. Doc, you taught us, be the type of person that no matter where you go or where you are in life, always add value to the lives of the ones around you. And I can see it in his sons, I can see it in his family, I can see it in his circle of friends that contacted us and gave condolences and support to the family. He lived in life for the people. Since he started in joining Ngibambe Ngesandla, in fighting for the liberation of our country, in bringing the freedom to our country, and empowering himself in the US to become a medical doctor, and empowering himself to fight for the safety and the security of South Africa. And then, after his pension, empowering himself to fight this monster called COVID-19. He successfully brought another vaccine to our country so that our people can be safe. Doc, we will never forget who you were and what you've done and the contribution that you've made to the business industry, to the military veterans, and to our people. Rest in peace, Doc. You lived a well-deserved life. Heaven has gained. We have lost. Mbeko and Suku. We've lost, but heaven has gained a beautiful angel waiting for us. Don't ever be afraid to die. Someone is waiting for you in the sky. We want to say that to Lillian as well. As she's fighting this monster, don't ever be afraid to die. Someone is waiting for you in the sky. And we pray to God that He will protect Lillian and He will bring her out with her family safely. And we will, as Numelox Group and his friends in business, we will take his legacy further in this business world. I thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing this part of Dr. Gulube that we don't know about. Really, he was indeed a very, very wonderful person, and we have indeed lost as a country in Dr. Gulube's passing. At this moment, I'll call upon Mr. Edwin Marumo as a friend also to come and pay tribute to Dr. Gulube.
Sangonan, Deputy Minister of Protocols. Now, a lot of people are talking about Sam. He was a medical doctor. He was a soldier. He was an administrator. He was a captain of industry. He was a very, very, very good community leader. Many things, very good things. To me, he was just a simple man. He was a dancer. Yeah? He was the first one to jump on the stage when the song was played. He was a singer, even though he had very wounded vocal cords. But he would sing when the song was being played. Sam was a DJ. Hey, DJ. We are talking about a real big DJ here. So, when there was anything happening where we were, be sure that Sam would bring the music. He loved music. He loved jazz. You know that Crusader song? There's another one, Play Me. Play Me. Yeah, that's what he would play, jazz, right? But that's when he was alone. When he was in company of people, he'd be playing reggae. That's when he'd be dancing, Bob Marley, that's what he loved. And Jonas Gwangwa, that was his favorite. So he was a simple man. Very simple man. When you wanted to see him happy was when he had performed surgery and when it was a long one. You know, I remember it was at Morehouse College. They had a hospital there. He was performing internal surgery. And when the people were okay and they were well, that was when he was happiest. He would play jazz. he was that kind of man. But he had a bad fashion sense. He was not good in terms of fashion. Right? Now, in the late 80s, a company called Reebok, they produced sneakers. It's a black. You know? They produced those sneakers. Sam wore them. He never let them go. Now, you remember those sneakers? So when they go, he bought another pair. Never changed. Now, he would wear those sneakers with jeans. He'd wear those sneakers with slacks. He'd wear those sneakers with a suit. And in many instances, we'll say, no, man, we're thinking, please, you know, not a suit with sneakers. So yeah, you'd be that kind of man. You are very poor at fashion. What you see there in that photograph is the work of Lillian. There was Sam before Lillian and Sam after Lillian. Yeah, he changed. He was very nice now. You know, you could see he was wearing matching ties. I couldn't believe it. You know, his belt matched with his shoes. I said, wow, you know, such a change. You know, so that was him, not a very great at fashion. But I'll tell you what I think mostly about Sam when I reflect on his life is the 3 C's. The 3 C's. For me, Sam was a man of chivalry. Chivalry. I could not get another term close to it. Chivalry. He respected women. But not only did he respect women, he treated them very nice. Chivalry. You know? Now, if you want to know how chivalry works with Sam, you must see him with Lillian. When Lillian steps out of the car, he opens the door. Yeah? And he makes sure that he's always one step in front to open the door for Lillian to come in. And he closed the door. When we were sitting at the party, he'd be the one to serve drinks to ladies. He'd know that, oh, the drinks are out. He'd stand up, he'd top you up, and so forth. I mean, he took care of the ladies. When we were in a train in New York City, you know all those trains, and the lady was coming in and we were sitting down, Sam, hey, you would stand up very quickly. And he gave his seat to the lady. Chivalry. I mean, when other men do it, it looks contrived. When Sam did it, it looked natural because that's who he was. The second C is commitment. Now, Sam, when he was committed to the cause, you would never do anything. He will make sure that he goes through with it. And you have heard here the speakers talk about his medical practice and his war of liberation together with MK and so forth. He would never leave an idea until it was finished. I was not there, but he told me. He started his medical degree in 1975 or 1976 or so. He then went on into MK and all of these things. He finished that degree in 91, because he had to do it, you know. So in between the fighting, in between everything, you know, he had to do this medical degree. And it was very important when he got it, he was the happiest man. The same with other projects, and we have heard Mr. Klein here today telling us about the most decorated projects that he's doing. So it was good to have him as a friend, because you knew when you sat with him and you had a plan and said, okay, let's do this thing, he will do it, he will finish it. The third C that distinguishes Sam to me is that of community. Sam had a sense of community, a very strong sense of community. Now, it does not matter which community he was belonging to, whether it was his ward group out in Four Ways, the ANC ward group, whether it was his colleagues at work, or whether it was here at EMBALENHLE. He always had a very strong sense of community. And since we are here in EMBALENHLE, let me tell you something. Sam would never, ever leave you alone. In all the projects that we did, he'd always say, hey, you know what? Why don't we start EMBALENHLE? he had that thing, you know. There was a telemedicine project that we did, and we started in MPUMALANGA because of him. Because I said, okay, if not in EMBALENHLE, then let's go to MPUMALANGA. Those are my forgotten people. He was so in touch with this community. To an extent, and now I'll tell you a very funny story, to an extent that one time we were in Geneva, because he was leading a government organization called the USA, Universal Service Agency. He was the CEO of that. And I was in the ministry, advisor to the minister. And we were going to the radio station there in Geneva, and we were talking about this telemedicine project. And the announcer asked him, he says, oh, Dr. Gulube, where are you from? And he says, I'm from EMBALENHLE. And it was, I mean, the DG called me, the minister called me, says, we are in Geneva. Nobody knows where EMBALENHLE. You should say South Africa. Nobody knows EMBALENHLE. And you know, it was something, because the EMBALENHLE, how do you spell it? E-M-B, whatever, you know. So, okay. The minister was not happy with it. He says, no, I don't know if it's this dancing that you were doing at night, but you are grounded. We were grounded that night. We did not go out because we had done that. But the truth about it is that when asked where he's from, he always identified this place first, which is why I think we are laying him to rest here, because he had a very strong sense of this community. He had a very strong sense of old people in this community. I mean, he would make sure that they went to their trips in Cape Town every December and so forth. You know, I mean, he was really, really exceptional like that. Now, when you take all those three C's and you reflect on the man, beyond all else, he was just a mother's baby, you know. Sam. Everybody would say, Sam is a mother's baby, man. Because every 2 minutes, he'd say, I must call my mother. He'd go in the corner, old as he was, call, hey, Ma, hey, Ninja, are you still okay? Every time. Whether he was in the States or he was here, you know, Sam would always be calling his mother. He loved his mother. So some of us called him mother's baby. He didn't know who we were talking about, but it was him. It was him. Yeah. So when you look at this place, EMBALENHLE, and the community spirit that he had here, there was one project that he was very, very concerned about. He wanted to do, I know. I'm not sure how far that project is. Maybe Mr. Klein would take it up. But he'd say, you know, where I'm from, EMBALENHLE and Secunda, you know, we are the bedrock of energy in this country. We give South Africa energy through our coal. But we do not have energy There's no electricity there, EMBALENHLE and the surrounding areas. So he was very busy on that project. I'm not sure if he saw it through. But what I know is that the spirit, the energy by which this coal that is found here at EMBALENHLE has fired up South Africa is the very same energy that Sam had for this country. So he was like this coal from this area. But colleagues, friends, I'd be wrong to compare him to coal, because Sam Gulube was a gem. He was refined, he was polished, and every time you cut him, he would sparkle. I'd call him a diamond in the rough. Rest easy, my friend, he was a giant.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marumo, for sharing the other side of Dr. Gulube, a person with a sense of humor. Thank you very much for that. At this point in time, ladies and gentlemen, I'll call upon Lieutenant General Eliam to come and speak on behalf of the South African National Defence Force. Thank you very much, Chaplain General. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor that I will now call upon the Deputy Minister to come and address us. Honorable Makwethu.
Please take your seat. Wait. Program Director, thank you very much for the opportunity. Maybe I should respectfully just expose my face once, so that you can confirm that the person who is at the podium is indeed the Deputy Minister of Defense and Military Veterans. I happen to have a brother who I'm told looks very much like me. And there are all sorts of stories I hear about what goes on when I'm not there. So I just thought that I should make that confirmation. Respectfully, allow me to, Master of Ceremonies, to recognize the bereaved Gulube family and the relatives who are here in this modest service, but huge in significance, where we are gathered to bid farewell and pay our last respects to Dr. Sam Gulube, alias Scientist Manifesto. I wish to convey my respects to Comrade Sam Gulube's wife and children, to also recognize our spiritual leaders in this service, Chaplain General of the South African National Defence Force, General Jamangile, and our local clergy. If there are government dignitaries in the audience this morning, I want to acknowledge all of them, and ANC leaders who are partaking in this funeral service physically and virtually. Allow me to appreciate the presence here of the Mayor of Govenenberg, Executive Mayor Zuma, and the local leadership that may be in the audience this morning. The defense community of our country at large, in this service and on virtual, the community of EMBALENHLE, professionals and friends of Dr. Gulube, colleagues, fellow mourners. After more than a year of COVID-19, just when we thought we have gone past the worst experience in our lives, the deaths we have encountered over the past weeks are frightening indeed. Our communities have lost countless icons our country was gifted with. Many citizens are daily ponder the question, how long shall we endure this pain? Such is the impact too of the untimely death of Dr. Sam Gulube, alias Scientist Manifesto. Many who knew Dr. Gulube are shattered because his was indeed an untimely death. In the camps of Umkhonto Wesizwe in Angola, Sam Gulube's reputation preceded him. People used to talk about Sam Gulube, and long after he had left the camp when he was in the States, they would still talk about him as if they were longing to have him in the community of those who were still in the camps. I thought about things to say today as we bid farewell to Dr. Gulube, and could not resist sharing with this audience some of the things that are said about him by the former Director General in the presidency, Vusi Mavimbela, who happened to know Sam Gulube very well. Mr. Mavimbela, in his acclaimed book, Time is Not the Measure, says Sam Gulube is one of the most intriguing characters he has ever met. Vusi Mavimbela shares a revealing anecdote about his first encounter with Comrade Scientist. He says they first met during an intervarsity tournament of those days, as you'd recall, and they were what were called home destroyers, an unsavory term reserved for those who failed to represent their institutions in any sporting code, because intervarsities were about different sporting codes, soccer, boxing, softball, and all of those things. He says because they did not play any sport, they had lots of time to imbibe alcohol. He says, I met Gulube at those binges which went on all night long. He was brought into the room where we were drinking and chatting after midnight, supported by 2 students because he was too inebriated to walk. He was too drunk to walk on his own. They laid him gently on a couch and he immediately fell asleep. He then goes on to say, what made me pay attention was the academic respect that his fellow students from Wentworth accorded him. As he slept, his mates marveled at the brilliance of his academic mind. They told stories of how he went around guzzling gallons of alcohol before exams, while they swatted for days on end. When the results came out, he was not only at the top of the class, but had earned several distinctions. Mavimbela says, those who did matric with him, with Sam Gulube, said that at the end of the semester in June, he had left some of his set books at home. He told them that he did not need them to pass his end-of-year exams because everything they contained, those books, was in his head. He went on to pass the exams with distinction. And as you would see in the obituary, it is said that he had obtained the best pass marks of all the students who wrote the National Senior Certificate in 1973. Dr. Gulube passed his medical studies with flying colors in the US, as the speaker before me shared with us. His university, where he was studying, offered to support him to further his studies, which he politely declined because his priority and focus was the political struggle, the commitment at home, the commitment that the speaker before me talked about. Comrade Scientist was deployed in the US and served as Comrade Johnny McCarthy's deputy at the United Nations. Dr. Gulube is one of the distinguished ANC cadres who prosecuted the ANC's international work and earned the ANC the respect and stature it enjoyed on multilateral bodies globally. It is their political astuteness which eventually earned the ANC the status of being the authentic representative of the South African people at the United Nations General Assembly, long before our country was free. He was respected throughout the anti-apartheid movement in America. Dr. Gulube was an immensely gifted person, but remarkably unassuming and not the one to draw attention of people to his talents. When I was in the Premier's office in the province, here in MPUMALANGA, I recall how excited I was when we clinched an agreement that he would join us as the DG of the province, only to be snatched by the former President Zuma when he was appointed the Secretary for Defense. That nearly dented my comradeship with Dr. Gulube because I felt let down. But as fate would have it, it was as if he knew what was going to happen, because we later rendezvoused at the Armscope building, our defense headquarters later. Master of Ceremonies, scientist Dr. Gulube is the only person I know who could start a presentation by saying, in conclusion. In his professional work as the Secretary for Defense, as the DG of the Department of Defense, people like him, Dr. Ngibambe Ngesandla, Dr. Khumalo, Dr. Joyous, Dr. Pearlito, Dr. Ngibambe Ngesandla, Dr. Khumalo, Dr. Joyous, Dr. Pearlito, Dr. Ngibambe Ngesandla, Dr. Khumalo, Dr. Joyous, Dr. Pearlito, Dr. Ngibambe Ngesandla, Dr. Khumalo, Dr. Joyous, Dr. Pearlito, Dr. Ngibambe Ngesandla, Dr. Khumalo, Dr. Joyous, Dr. Pearlito, Dr. Ngibambe Ngesandla, Dr. Khumalo, Dr. Joyous, Dr. Pearlito, Dr. Ngibambe Ngesandla, Dr. Khumalo, Dr. Joyous, Dr. Pearlito, Dr. Ngibambe Ngesandla, Dr. Khumalo, Dr. Joyous, Dr. Pearlito, Dr. Ngibambe Ngesandla, Dr. Khumalo, the hazard of their profession is making presentation almost every day to different, fora. Now, Dr. Gulube would start his presentation and introduce the subject. If you are not alert, he will say, therefore, in conclusion. Now, one day he did that, and I did not understand that why he was saying in conclusion when he had just started his presentation. And he laughed and said, no, Deputy Minister, I was just checking if you are still awake, if you are not sleeping. But when I talked to him after the meeting, he said to me, no, when we are presenting to ministers, we are talking to very busy people, so don't punish them with the many technical details that presentations contain. Just get them to where you want them, the issues you want them to give you a go-ahead on. So that was scientist. He was so good that he was able to distill. Bekakwazi ucomrade scientist ukuthi he could strip issues of the embellishments around them and just give you the nub of what it is that we need to decide on and get done with. I'm having very fond memories of Dr. Gulube, because as the speakers before me said, he was a very talented person. Talented because he was immensely gifted, but at the same time, very humble. Life has a way about, things. You can imagine if the talents that Dr. Gulube had were, given to some of us. He was talented, but very humble, but at the same time, very, very warm. Very warm. And he had a very, funny sense of humor. I remember that he used to say when he's presenting and he gets a slip of mind, he omits, he's missing something, and he would pause for a second and he said, oh, okay, I'm having my seniority moment, don't worry. And everybody would just be so entertained. One day, after he had been away for the first time from work for days, when he came back, I was concerned, and I wanted to find out what was wrong, because someone suggested that he had a heart problem. So I quietly wanted to inquire from him how serious his problem was. He says, inhliziyo yami ibuhlungu. Inhliziyo yakho ibuhlungu, scientist. No, inhliziyo yami ibuhlungu, DM. But of course, if you want me now to be, technical and speak medicine about this, this is what is involved. And he went into details of a very complex condition, but he had simplified it to me and said, and he says at the end, no, that is why my heart is paining. Inhliziyo yami ibuhlungu. He was a funny fellow, a very pleasant human being. Now, what made him even more pleasant is that he was a real leader. He was a real leader because Sam Gulube knew that there is no such a thing as winning an argument. Mavimbela talks about this somewhere in his book, and which is true. There is nothing in life like winning an argument. Because, as they say, in a debate, in an argument, if the person you are arguing with is convinced about his viewpoint and you prove him wrong, at the end of that argument, you must know that you may have lost a friend because he may not actually be so, impressed with you. So you can win an argument in facts, but in the bigger scheme of things, that is not necessarily victory. So Sam Gulube was driven by that motto because in all the differences that were there in our departments and the ministry, there's never an issue on which any one of us can say, Sam Gulube differed with me and held this position. He's one person who was able to pull everything, together, and even where there are very intense differences, he was able to, to navigate people's differences and get them to move in one direction. It was a very rare gift that he had. The Minister of Defense, Minister Nosvuwe Mapisa Ngakula, always has a lot of respect for our former Secretary for Defense because he says whenever there was an intense debate and argument between the Chief of the Defense Force and the Minister, the Secretary for Defense was the person to bring them together. The one thing that Sam would be remembered for, Dr. Gulube would be remembered for, is that to me, he was a very genuine development cadre. You see, in the struggle to bring about change in this country, we had cadres of all hues, of all categories. I'm talking people who were committed in their lives to give their all to bring about change. Comrade Sam Gulube was with those who carried guns, weapons. But he was able, or let me say, in the ANC, there were those who were in the military wing, Umkhonto wesizwe. But there were also those who were in the student community who the ANC sent across the globe to go and further their studies to be professionals in different fields in anticipation of what our country is going to demand of us after. Scientists did both of those things. He was with those who carried guns, but at the same time became professionally an asset to our country and to our organization. And our country today needs more of people like Sam Gulube. We really need development cadres. People who can bring the better life that we talk about and that we crave for, but we talk about it only in theory. Only in theory, the practice of bringing that better life to our communities, the things that we must master in today's world, the things that we must understand in today's world to give our people a better life, not many of us have that capacity. The speaker before me talked about scientists and telemedicine. the reason why I was recruiting him to join us in the province to be the DG, it is because he had excited me about just how technology could be used to expedite development, especially in rural communities. Of course, I cannot claim that I even understood some of the things that he was telling me, but they were mind-boggling enough for me to say, to feel that, no, I can't let this comrade go and remain where he is. He must come and sort this thing out for us. So, he was what our country needs today. But not only was he very professionally sophisticated, he also had, as it was said here, he had the heart for what he stood for. Our country, as South Africans, at times, we never want to accept and acknowledge that on the continent there are many things that we can learn from other countries, which at times we think development-wise they are not where we are. On the river Zambezi today, there is an iconic architecturally bridge that straddles that long river, more than a kilometer-long bridge. It was built between Botswana and and Zambia. The two countries collaborated to build that bridge. It just got finished not long ago. It took them 3 years to build that bridge. It's a massive bridge, very long bridge across the Zambezi. Now, in our country, Gusile has taken us more than 10 years. It took more than 10 years to build one power station, which, as we speak today, it has been completed in part, but what has been completed of it is already problematic. Now, you see, if you do not have development cadres for development, freedom can remain a pipe dream. So we need, at this point, more of citizens, young people of the caliber that Dr. Gulube evinced. Let me say, moving towards the conclusion of my remarks, today it's Nelson Mandela Day. Comrade Scientist is among ANC cadres in the international front of the ANC work, who popularized the name Nelson Mandela globally at the United Nations and all the Americas. He did that because Nelson Mandela was to us an embodiment of the desires of our people, come whatever, to have their dignity restored, but not only that, but that they should also live decent lives. We are today in our communities, especially in KZN and in Gauteng, faced with something that we never anticipated. But the reason why we are encountering what is happening, it is because within and among South Africans, there are people who are saying the sacrifices made by thousands of South Africans, and some of them sacrificed their own singular lives, to make sure that in our country, like all countries that are civilized, citizens must see what they desire happening in their lives through democratic processes. Those who believe that their views and their perspective will benefit the country better, let them have the right to convince everyone else and be voted for, and we do what they are proposing. It was never, ever thought that we will, after we have sacrificed so much for our constitutional democracy, there would be South Africans who say, no, we must have this country managed and governed differently, and the way we think we are going to impose it on you, we shall not do it through democratic processes. As we speak, over 100 of citizens have died. Can you imagine? From the history that we are coming from, that today in South Africa, hundreds of people are dying. Many of them are maimed because we differ. It cannot be. It cannot be, and it should never be allowed. We have to do it in honor of the memory of Comrade Scientist and his generation, but we have to do it for the future, for posterity in this country. We cannot allow the future of our children to be a country that is turned into wasteland, a country whose economy is totally dysfunctional. Some of us were privileged to have lived outside South Africa for many years and in many countries. We know the syndrome of economies that can collapse and take a lifetime to bring back into functionality. Where you wake up in the morning, it doesn't matter whether you have money, you have to go and queue for that one loaf of bread. Whether it doesn't matter, where it does not matter whether you have money, there is nowhere to go because you go into the shop, the shelves are empty. And not only this month, not only this year, not only next year, for an entire lifetime. Economies that are not working. So, it is important that when we do things today, we must think of our country's future. To the Gulube family, we can never have sufficient words to convey our appreciation of the contribution your family has done to bring our country where it is today. And to Comrade Sam Gulube's children, you've had a very unique father, as you said it in your own words. Do yourself a favor in life. Be proud of what your father was and make sure that wherever he is, when he looks at you, because he will be there looking over you, he become the same Gulube that is very proud of what he has left within his family. Thank you very much.
I would like to greet you all in the name of Jesus. Amen. Nyanbulisa abafundisi, Kyalidumedisa family, friends, those who have joined us virtually and also here, and all protocol observed. I am Sefako. I am Lillian's younger sister. Dr. Gulube was my brother-in-law, and he was actually more than a brother-in-law to me. I'm standing here, I'm speaking on behalf of the More family, who most of them are here, some have joined virtually. Mamori, our mother, who is also lying in hospital, who Oud Dog was her favorite. I'm also speaking for Ntate Mori, who is also home recovering, who has joined us virtually. I'm speaking for my sister, Aus Liliane, who is also in hospital. And she's gonna be very proud. And Uncle Sam, as my children refer to Dr. Gulube, was an amazing man. I had everybody speaking of Uncle Sam as this brilliant doctor, a veteran, but to us, he was our brother. When Uncle Sam advised you, you know it was solid advice. It came from the heart. I remember when my son, I think my first son was 2 years at that time, he swallowed a coin. And I wanted to run to the ER as a first-time mother because I was panicking. And Dr. Gulube said, no, it will come out when he takes his stool. Don't worry, you know. And you always had this calm about him that everything is okay. And indeed it was. And when Uncle Sam gave advice, you trusted the advice. He has helped me in my business. And it was very solid. It came from the heart. I remember the past Christmas that we spent with him. We didn't even know it was our last Christmas. He brought the music. One of the speakers has told us that he was a DJ. Indeed he was. He'll bring his cam chair, he'll bring his marquee, and we knew for a resorted music. And that's what we'll remember when we go to Rodiport and have our braais. And I remember we used to go to many trips with Uncle Sam. We went to, the last one we all were together was last year. We went to Palala in Limpopo. And Uncle Sam would take all the kids. And because he saw Uguti, you know what, we just want to relax. And he will take the kids and he will just drive around with them. I remember they were lost in the bush. And the older one had a cell phone and called us and said, we are lost. But Uncle Sam said, no, we are not lost. We're just, going around. But they were actually lost. But because he had this calm and assurance that everything is okay, we believed that everything was okay. We have lost more than a brother-in-law. He was more than that to us. Ubaba no mama never considered Uncle Sam as a brother-in-law, but as their son. And indeed he was. He loved his in-laws so much, that almost every Sunday we were in Rodiport, and my mom would say, I'm cooking oxtail, because it was one of his favorite dishes. He loved his oxtail. And we will always remember you. We'll miss you sitting there with your glass of whiskey, having a whiskey with my dad. And we'll miss the music, and we'll remember that. We have so many memories, and we'll hold on to that. To the Gulube family, we'd like to thank you. Uguti, my sister met an amazing man. Indeed, she was blessed, and she knows that. And to Sugu and Mbeko, you guys are Lillian's sons. From even at her wedding, she said, Uguti, you guys are her kids. So the More family would like to say thank you from the bottom of their hearts. I'm now going to read a tribute from Lilian to Udok, who was her husband. And it reads as follows. It seems words fail me. You were my best friend. We were always together. We traveled the world together. We made many, many memories, which I will always cherish and thank God for. You played such a special role as both a husband and a father to our boys, Sugu and Beko. At this time, I knew that I'd give all the world for just 1 hour with you. But it comforts me so much that you are right here in my heart. God indeed gave me my soulmate in you. You had a beautiful soul, and you touched many. Many called you scientist, sec-deaf, dog, but to me, you were Istando Sami. You were ubaby, umuntu wami. You always knew what to say, even in the most difficult circumstances. You were always calm. I don't know how you did it. You must actually teach me that. You had a great sense of humor, and I could laugh till tears ran down my face. You always wanted the best for us, and we had the best. We had each other. I know you are looking down upon us, very proud of our boys as well, and your beautiful grandson, who you were very close with. I love you, Standaswam. I know you are now with me 24/7. I know Ugogo Maphala no Baba have welcomed you with open arms. With that I say, Lala Ngokolo, I love you, and we will meet again. Thank you.
Good morning, all. To the Gulube family, sending you strength and a wish that moments you shared will leave beautiful memories that will last forever in your heart. You are all in our prayers, with love from Marumo family, Gladwin and Refilwe. From the More family, rest in power, son. Uncle Sam, you will sorely be missed. We will always love you. Sincere condolences. May God bring you peace, comfort from Matabo. From your loving wife, Lilian, rest in peace, Tandwa Sam. I will always miss you.
Thank you, and thank you very much. Please cut samanje sizawucela eze ngaphambili loyo ozo sifundela isithakazelo.
Ngibingelela abafundisi egameni kaJesu nebandla lonke. Ndeni Sukuma Nombeko bantakwami alehlanga elingehlanga useyinkosi uJesu uyabusa noma kunje. Amen. Lolele la umfowethu sizalwa umkhulu oyi1 uPhurutsi. Mina ngizomphelezela ke ngesithakazelo sakubo sakaGulube sangempela. Ngizothi kuwe lala ngoxolo mfowethu rahalakani. Usihlwa simamile sihlwa ikepele re tla boa re o hwetša tsiane makuku tsiane segobotswane itumuleng le ilahle e senya mtotoding nkwetuna sifuluga thaba o fulugile ka bolepo ba tla sala ba boga mabala a fetileng mngatu rahalakane phagwana le gontšile robola ka kgotso obuthi. Sabong.
Greetings, Dr. Sam Makutu Gulube. Those who shared the combat trenches of the liberation struggle with you will salute you by the nom de guerre of Scientist Manifesto. I greet you from across the vast waters of the Atlantic Ocean. If this distance from where I greet you sounds too distant, you and I must at least remind ourselves that it is these very vast waters that conveyed millions of African slaves from our continent to the lands of the Americas. In that sense, then, I'm not far away from you. Our distance has been bridged by the human cruelty and the heroism that defined the Atlantic slave trade. I salute you in this hour of your exit from this great theater of our dreams, of our tribulations, and our imperfections. It is Shakespeare who said, "The world is a stage, and all of us are actors." Some of the actors will enter this stage, play their part, and depart, leaving behind a legacy of great accomplishments that shall forever impact in many positive ways the lives of the people. However, there are others who will enter this theater, hobble along on stage, and one day they will depart, leaving behind a lasting, unbearable stench of betrayal to the cause of the people for liberation. I could not be with you at this defining hour, but the least I could do is to convey this farewell message to you in the company of the national flag of a liberated South Africa. You sacrificed your youthful life and dedicated it to the realization of this flag. This flag represents your precious blood that you had surrendered to the struggle as insurance for our liberation. You were prepared to lay down your life for this liberation to be achieved. This flag represents the black majority whose aspirations encapsulated the moral justification of the liberation struggle. It reflects the green and the gold as a measure of the endowments that should accrue to the people and nourish the character of their lives. I see in it the blue infinity of the oceans and the skies, as if it is the boundless expression of people's enterprise and culture, their limitless hopes, and their free spirit to scale the greatest of heights and the deepest of human inquiry. It is with great regret that I cannot touch your hand now and bid you a good farewell embrace that befits the loftiness of your liberation contribution. I, however, take solace that you left us with this flag. We owe it to you to protect what it represents, to uphold it at all times, and hoist it high to the heavens on earth. Dr. Gulube, it is for that reason that I must conclude by apologizing to you for those that have entered the theater of our lives, not to hoist this flag high, but to desecrate it. As you depart today, you leave behind an unbearable stench of destruction caused by some who masquerade as your comrades still. As we bid you farewell, large segments of the country's infrastructure have been looted and set ablaze by some who masquerade as your comrades still. They too make bold and loud claims that they are upholders and defenders of this very flag and the plight of the people. They have looted the country's family silver and sold it to the highest bidder, but they too claim to be revolutionaries still. They have infiltrated and gutted different institutions of democracy, accountability, law enforcement, and service delivery, but they too claim to be revolutionaries still. They have flouted fundamental precepts of the Constitution, the judiciary, and the rule of law, yet they also claim to be revolutionary still. They have blocked the highways, seaports, and rendered delivery to the people unworkable, but they too claim to be revolutionary still. Their coldly calculated actions have led to the tragic deaths of many innocent poor people, but they claim to be revolutionary still. Their actions have disabled the flow of goods and services to South Africa's neighboring countries, making the poor of those countries to endure further hardships, but they also claim to be revolutionary still. Pixley ka Isaka Seme, more than a century ago, admonished us against the spectre of racialism and ethnicity. Today, his white bones must have been greatly disturbed because there are those shadowy characters that have resorted to social media and have unashamedly fanned the fires of racialism, ethnicity, and xenophobia, and yet they boldly claim to be revolutionary still. Dr. Gulube, we can only pledge our commitment to work hard to uphold and defend the principles that made you fight for liberation. However, we should never and can never forgive ourselves for the damage that we have done to the aspiration of the people for speedy and full emancipation. Hamba kahle, qabane elihle.
Lord Jesus, I want to express my gratitude to the family of Dr. Sam Gulube and the BSNB ANC branch for allowing me to pay tribute to my comrade, to my colleague, and my friend and my business partner. It was about 1976 uprisings when my relationship with Dr. Sam Gulube started. In the backdrop thereafter, we found ourselves as students in the Americas, and with our naivety, we thought that we had a message to give to America. That is why, as students, we formed an organization called the South African Students in the Americas. It was around the time when South Africa was recognized as a pariah state, and the sanctions were topical around and about South Africa. In our political naivety, we thought that we could influence the direction of politics. We thought that we could bridge the gap between the ANC and the PAC. And also we thought that we wanted to make sure that we deliver a common message to the American public. Universities, because of their investment in the especially motor industry, were sensitive about their investments, and therefore there was a hive of activity of students in American universities about that. Now, it was around that time when Comrade David Ndaba, as Dr. Sam Gulube was known, was deployed to work in the office of the ANC representative in the United Nations and the Americas. This deployment alone must indicate to all of us the quality of a man Dr. Gulube was. Having worked in President Tambo's office merely as a boy, Comrade Tambo must have recognized Comrade Sam's brilliant mind, his decisive and always clear mind. America in the United Nations was a very important posting for our liberation movement. South Africa, being topical in the corridors of the United Nations, was being discussed from left and center. Here was our leadership that decided to post this young man to such a high office, to become an administrative assistant to the formidable Comrade Johnny Makatini, our chief representative at the United Nations. It did not take a long time for Comrade Sam's engagement with the restless South African students in the Americas to bear fruit. He made us understand that the ANC was conducting a liberation war and had to be methodical and strategic. Remember, as youth, throughout where South African youth were, we thought that our liberation movement was slow and was shunning students and not listening to students' needs. They could not attend to our every whim because our whims, our wishes as youth were really naive politically at the time. But it is Comrade Sam Gulube who made us realize that through his engagement. Because at that time, I personally was a medical student in the Americas, and Dr. Gulube at the time had been to Natal Medical School. He shared his experiences with me and his intention to go and complete his medical studies. Fortunately, Dr. Gulube was able to continue and finish his medical studies at the Morehouse Medical College, which is a center of Black initiative and excellence in Atlanta, Georgia. He went on to become a chief surgical resident at the Tampa Bay General Hospital in Florida. At the dawn of democracy, the scientist, as he was called, Comrade Ndaba, came back home, this time as General Surgeon, Comrade Dr. Sam Makudu Gulube, and joined the #1 military hospital as a surgeon. It was such a pleasure for me to reconnect with my long-lost friend. And this time we were reconnecting not only as activists, but also as surgeons. His experience in Florida brought him to understanding the use of information technology in the delivery of healthcare. This is what is called telemedicine. He had participated in the establishment of telehealth services in 5 of Tampa Bay hospitals in Florida. He introduced me to telemedicine, and I saw the role it could play in the improvement of healthcare delivery in our country. This man's influence was so strong that I resigned my position as a senior surgical consultant at the Medical University of South Africa to pursue telemedicine. Comrade Sam is a man you could trust. He was soft-spoken, extraordinarily wise when he was merely a boy. It is not for nothing that he was nicknamed Scientist Manifesto. I so believed in his qualities as a leader that when the late Comrade Dr. Molefi Sefularo passed on as Deputy Minister of Health, I tested my political influence by campaigning hard behind doors for Dr. Gulube to be appointed as Deputy Minister of Health. Up to today, I strongly believe that as a nation, we could have gained immensely had we deployed Dr. Gulube to the Department of Health. As we got older, we started sharing ideas about what we were going to do in retirement. We have 2 projects that are still hanging in the air. One we started just before the lockdown COVID of 2020, when we visited Swaziland to look at how we could participate in a group of hospitals and primary care clinics. Those plans were brought to halt by COVID difficulties. Recently, about 8 months ago, we started looking at food security, and Dr. Gulube has started working on cattle stock farming. Unfortunately, he passed on before he could realize the essence of what he wanted to do. But then he had already started with a herd of cattle that he had started developing. My friend, I will miss your wisdom. I'll miss your intellect, your sensitivity, and your caring nature, and above all, your humility. I will miss the quiet times we spent together sipping our whiskey, enjoying your well-selected, memorable jazz tunes. COVID, don't be proud. Go well, my friend, go well. Thank you.
Comrade scientist, Comrade David Ndaba, your MK names, Comrade Dr. Sam Gulube, I pay my tribute to you today and say fare you well, beloved son of the soil. I say fare you well, a heroic member of Mkondo Sizwe. I say hamba kahle Mkondo. You've served our country with distinction. For 46 years since I came to know you as a member of the 2016 detachment of Mkondo Sizwe in Angola, you served with distinction and aplomb. All the missions are fulfilled, working in the United Nations to mobilize international solidarity against apartheid and build support for the African National Congress. You did with aplomb. You didn't end there, you came back, you served our country selflessly and with honor and dignity. Your loss is a pain to me personally, who came to know you. We had the privilege of being led by you. I say fare you well as a member of the Payas Nodi branch of the African National Congress at Ward 42, to which you also belong. I'm humbled by the fact that I crossed my path in life with you. As I say goodbye, I wish you to rest in peace. When we meet Oliver Tambo, when we meet Chrisani, Solomon Mashlam, Ruth Mompati, and many other heroes and heroes of our struggle, tell them that we shall not dare allow your spear to fall down and hit the dust. We shall pick it up and move on with the struggle for a better life for which you fought for. We shall not relent as our country is going through trials and tribulations, as we fight against attempts to destroy what you fought for. We shall continue to fight even harder to make sure that the better life for our people that we fought for is finally achieved. Hamba kahle Mkondo. We know that you are going on earth, but we shall meet again. May I sing this song for you and say, Uhambile, uhambile, usem Gulube, uhambile, hamba kahle, hamba kahle, hamba kahle, kawela makawe, hamba kahle, lihambile, lihambile, ikawela makawe, lihambile. May you rest in eternal peace till we meet again. I salute.
not the Chaplain General. Good morning. It's important that before somebody speaks, people must know who is this person. Because the story was told that after Dr. Mandela came out of prison, he visited different people, and he went into a hospital where people who were challenged with mentally were kept. So he came to greet everybody, and there was this one person who was just sitting and looking, and others were excited to see Madiba, and this one was just sitting there looking. So Madiba bin Madiba looked at this person and said, "How are you?" And the person just kept quiet. And he said, "I am Dr. Nelson Mandela." The guy just kept quiet. And when he opened his mouth, he said, "You know, when I was mentally disturbed, I told everybody that I am Dr. Mandela. So I think now you are doing the same." So it's important that people must know who is going to speak. The Chaplain General is a man of God. He is married. The wife is also here. Mama Chamangile, can I see? They're at the back. This is a man who was one of those who were invited by Chris Hani. Before he came into South Africa, he said, "I want all the chiefs of defense to come and see me." And the Chaplain General was one of those who went to see Chris Hani. And when he came back from meeting Chris Hani outside the country, the Chaplain General was a different man. You know, those who know Chris Hani, they say if you meet Chris Hani, you will never be the same after meeting him. So when the Chaplain General came back from meeting Chris Hani, he was a different person. And you could see that this man has received a message. But we don't know what is this message that he received. And I always say when I look at him today, you know, God, when he wants to use you, he takes you away from the people and put you in the desert and deal with you. So when I met him now being a Chaplain General, and I said, wow, whatever Chris Hani told him, it has worked. It changed him. He was a commander of the forces, but today he's a Chaplain General. God took him out of the defense force, went to deal with him, and brought him a changed person. Today he's a man that is used by God in this organization to support our chiefs, to support everybody who feels the pain. Imagine if he did not meet Chris Hani and God changed his life, he will not be what he is today. He's the only man in his office who was able to do so many things. He's the one that buried Dr. Nelson Mandela. He's a Chaplain General. Many people see him in uniform. They don't see him in his gowns. So when you say Chaplain General, they think, no, you are talking about somebody who's not here. He's the same person that you see on TV. So God has brought him to MPUMALANGA to come and minister. I want to introduce him to say, Chaplain General, the Lord has laid a message, the message to heal the broken hearts. May God use you and may God anoint you who are waiting to hear what the Lord has laid in your heart. God bless you, sir. It is well with my soul. So it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. Whoa, it is well. It
with my soul, kuhleke. Moya wam, wo kuhle, kuhleke, kuhle, kuhleke, moya wam. I thank you. To our Honorable Deputy Minister of Defense, Ubawo wetu, Ubawo Umakwetla, ophakathi kwethu kusasa nje. To the Gulube family, both kwi-family yakulonkosikazi na kwi-family kabawo Gulube. To the mayor, obethetha apha phakathi kwethu, and to my chaplains who have worked very hard to support this family, both here and also in Pretoria. I want to thank you, my chaplains.
To the program director of Bawethu Siphathelele Nkonzo, Ngembeko ngesidima nangesithozelo esifaneleyo up to thus far. To all our dignitaries, our distinguished guests from all over, and to all our distinguished people who are watching this funeral through virtual, I would like to greet you and say good morning to everybody. Good morning to everybody. Thank you. I was told we are left with a few minutes, but I want to assure you that those minutes are not going to intimidate me, not to speak the word that the Lord has assigned me to speak. But I will respect the time. I want to respect all expressions of faith that are with us in this funeral today. From the Holy Book, we read, "The Lord has sought out a man after his own heart and appointed him as leader of his people." This is from the Old Testament books, the book of Samuel, one of the great judges of that time. A man who was a chief advisor to the kings and the military captains. And when he spoke, they listened to him. But for the purpose of this funeral, about Dr. Gulube, our former Secretary for Defense, we want to say today, tomorrow, and forever about this great giant. Central to the many outstanding features of the character and political mission of our former Secretary for Defense, Dr. Gulube, is his profound commitment to live as a true Christian gentleman. His uniquely insightful contemplation and accurate interpretation of national and international politics. has educated and empowered many to be intrepid in the face of life's most formidable tasks. He personifies the qualities of greatness, that spiritual, mental and psychological conditions that inspires love, admiration, and altruism in those who know him. By way of this message, I wish to briefly touch on what I regard as vital. He did his best to present himself to God as one approved, a workman who did not need to be ashamed and who correctly handled the word of truth. Dr. Gulube, our former Secretary for Defense, had a keen sense of current events and affairs. His sharp analytical approach in doing his work has truly made him a man of all seasons. Also somebody who could be trusted with the government of others, because he could be trusted with the government of himself. His military/medical development acumen made him revered and envied by many across the broad spectrum of our nation. As a statesman, we salute and congratulate him on his outstanding service rendered to God, the community, and the country South Africa in which we live. Dr. Gulube became an instrument for change and the catalyst that changed the course of history in many positive ways for our nation and our Department of Defense. As a result thereof, the people of our nation and the Department of Defense became beneficiaries of his strong, eloquent, and vocal leadership. Many a time, we speculate as what makes a great leader. Often I have wrestled with this probing question. When I attempt to establish criteria, I fail to understand principles or theories. Instead, I think of Socrates and some other great men and women who walked the face of this earth. I can conclude what made them great. It is because they walked the talk. Mahatma Gandhi once said, those great women and men, they lived what they taught, and their lives were part of their lessons. And to the list, I want now to add the name of Dr. Gulube. He led by precept and example. This man was eloquent, yet gracious. He was intelligent, yet humble. His one outstanding quality was his deep humility
and love for all people, humility, sensitivity, understanding, and self-sacrifice, that his service made him easily accessible and acceptable to the people from all walks of life. Dr. Gulube was one of the towering figures in contemporary Garden state of politics and all that it entails. He was a decent person and compassionate human being. We were blessed to be his friends, brothers and sisters and comrades in our struggle for love, justice and equity for all people wherever they may be. We have witnessed how he took his God-given leadership and insight and utilized it to make a change through better knowledge of things that matters, as he led the charge for justice, equality, community service at home and elsewhere. We are pleased to salute and congratulate Dr. Gulube, our former Secretary for Defense, for his unwavering service, steadfast devotion, and egalitarian leadership, especially in the Department of Defense. We agree that his profound and provocative leadership in the Department of Defense laid the groundwork for us to be entrusted in leading this department on higher levels. I join my voice with that of thousands of South Africans as we cheerfully express our confidence in his integrity as a person. We had the qualities to prove that he was an able and conscientious leader who definitely made a difference. But Dr. Gulube had an amazing faith. In him, faith was God's promise to each of us. For what God has done in the past, he will do it again today. Through God's power, we can overcome. It has well been said that faith does not just believe in spite of evidence. It is obeying in spite of consequences. Truthful faith always leads to works. Truthful faith obeys God in spite of circumstances or consequences. And it is not afraid of what others say or what they do. Truthful faith is based on what God says and is demonstrated in what we do. People with faith do things for God, and God does things for them. Faith in God gives you the ability to endure hardship, like a soldier when others give up. To the Gulube family, to the friends who are far and near, this is the faith that carried Dr. Gulube. The miracles of faith, you know, we open a can of food and eat it because we have faith it is not harmful to us. We get on a plane and sit back with assurance because we have faith that the pilot who's flying the plane knows what he's doing. We go to the doctor whose name we cannot pronounce, who gives us a prescription we cannot read. We take it to the pharmacist. We do not know. He gives us a medicine that we do not even know or understand. And yet we take it all by faith. My mind is too small to grasp the vastness of God's goodness and mercy. And yet, my soul is anchored in the Lord, and my knees bow down before the Lord, for our God, our Maker, in all of His glory. Such was Dr. Gulube. When I lie or when I sleep in the night, God's mercy makes my bed. When I wake up in the morning, God's goodness is there. When I walk or drive or fly in the air, it's God's grace that holds the plane up. It is God's grace that covers the car. It is His grace that directs my footsteps. So all of you keep the faith that Dr. Gulube kept. It was by his faith that we are able to talk about him today. So continue to keep the faith, a faith that will not murmur or complain beneath the chastening rod, but in the hour of grief and pain, keep the faith that Dr. Gulube kept. Today, you have heard what our leaders have spoken or said. It is only by faith that we will overcome even the present situation. I tell you, this will pass too, like all others. They are coming from different and difficult situations. This will pass too. Like Dr. Gulube, he kept the hope and faith that there will be a better South Africa tomorrow. The better South Africa will come, whether we like it or not. For God bless it, but through it, we will see perilous times and perilous people. And don't worry, don't be afraid. He will be with us as he was with them. The foundation stones of our country, the Nelson Mandelas of this time, of our fathers, the Walter Sisulus, the Governor Mbekis, the Ahmed Katradas, the Dr. Gulube that we're talking about today, they will make sure that this country will be what they meant to be. My brothers and sisters, as we are about to say bye-bye forever to this great giant, to this former Secretary for Defense of the Department of Defense, we want to say to you, Gulubes, thank you. Thank you for giving us such a giant. Thank you for giving us such a giant. To Mother Lillian, in that bed, the Lord will touch you. You will wake up. By the time we do the memorial service, you will join us. You will join us. To the mother of Lillian, the Lord will touch you there. You will also wake up, for you do not belong there. May the good Lord bless you. 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 It is well with my soul. Oh, it is well. It is well with my soul. I thank you.
Amen. Siyabonga. SinoNkulunkulu osithandayo, uNkulunkulu namandla. Uma uDaniel aya emgodini wezinyama waya azi ukuthi uhamba nobani. uShadrach emgodini umlilo bangena phansi entabeni yaseGetsemane. Uma uJesu aya eGolgotha wahamba khona azi ukuthi uhamba nobani. Namhlanje ubaba umfundisi uchaplain ugcizelela indaba yokukholwa. Sikholwa ngoba sazi ukuthi sihamba nobani. Nizongena abantwana bakugulubu bazongena empilweni yokungabi nobaba. Bangena bazi bahamba nobani. Bangena ngokukholwa. Ukukholwa kuzalisindisa, ukukholwa kuzalikhulula. Siyabonga baba uchaplain general. Kumanje nje sizohamba kanje sifike endaweni isikhathi mazi ukuthi sihambe siyobeka umzimba kaBaba endaweni yakhe yokugcina. Abazoya khona ke kuzaba abomndeni kuphela, uhambe ama dignitaries we department akhona lapha military, uhambe ke nabaholi
thank you, DJ, for keeping us warm. The family have settled down now. We are going to proceed with the next phase. And thank you to the undertakers. Honorable Deputy Minister of Defense and Military Veterans, permission to proceed, sir. I thank you. We now commit the body of Dr. Sam Gulube. Let us pray. Because God has chosen to call our brother, Dr. Sam Gulube, to his life, to himself. We commit his body to the earth, for we are dust, and to dust we shall return. But the Lord Jesus Christ will change our mortal bodies to be like his in glory. For he is risen, the firstborn from the dead. So let us commend our brother to the Lord, that the Lord may embrace him and raise up his body on the last day. Amen. The Honorable Deputy Minister of Defense, keeping the correct social distance, to come and pay the last respects. I thank you. We now hand over to the family.
By his peers at the University of Natal Medical School for his academic brilliance. Dr. Gulube started school at Vuganini Primary from the year 1961 through to 1968. He attended Amanzimtoti Adams College Secondary from the year 1969 through to 1970. In the year 1973. Gulube then attended the University of Natal Medical School in the year 1973 until 1976. His studies were interrupted when a warrant for his arrest was issued by the apartheid regime for participating in organizing the Solidarity Student Uprisings of 1976 at the University of Natal. Left the country and joined the ANC in Angola at the age of 22 in the year 1976. Under the Nom de Guerre Scientist Manifesto, Gulube was trained in Angola until the second half of 1979. He was then deployed in Lusaka, Zambia, to work in the Department of Information and Publicity. That same year, Gulube would go on to be appointed as the ANC Deputy Representative to the United Nations in the year 1979 through to 1986 in New York, USA. His nom de guerre was changed to David Ndaba based on his passport issued by the UN upon leaving Zambia in the year 1979. It was Sam's dream to complete his medical studies. At the age of 32 in the year 1986, ANC President O.R. Tambo instructed him to resume his medical studies at the Morehouse School of Medicine in Atlanta, Georgia. He received several honors at Morehouse, including an induction into Alpha Omega Alpha Society, AOA, and the Presidential Leadership Award. He completed the General Surgery Residency Program at the University of South Florida in Tampa, Florida. He was appointed Associate Professor of General Surgery of the University of South Florida in the year 1996. Upon his return to South Africa in late 1997, he would continue his life as a purpose-driven public servant. He served on the Presidential Medical Team as a Principal Medical Officer at one military hospital, as a National Medical Director of the South African National Blood Service, as CEO of the Universal Service Agency of South Africa, and several other esteemed public service roles, until finally retiring as a Secretary of the Defense, SecDef, after 44 years of public service. Dr. Gulube was a truly humble heart and courageous character. He will certainly be missed by all who knew him. Dr. Samson Gulube died on the 11th of July, year 2021. His death is a loss to his family, his country, and the world. Rest in eternal peace, our beloved Dr. Samson Gulube.
To everything there's a season, and a time for every matter or purpose under the heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, a time to get, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to cast away. A time to run, and a time to stop. A time to keep silence, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time for war, and a time for peace. From LatinAutor Funeral Home and its management, we wish that God can come close to you and comfort you. Remember, He is closer to you than we think. LatinAutor Funeral Home, together we can make it. Together we can make it.
Sir.